What if in the end, as you look back, you realize the days you lived were only echoes of someone else's desires? Not your wishes, but inherited wants. Not your choices, but choices that chose you. Silence begins like this. Not as an absence of sound, but as the presence of a question that drifts through decades and settles on the back of your neck, like the weight of a forgotten hand. Do you recognize yourself in the life you lived? You walk down a hallway full of portraits, but none of them hold your true face. They're versions of you, domesticated, sculpted, polished to fit into other people's dreams. Your eyes look forward, but they don't belong to you. They are worn from seeking approval, from walking paths drawn by hands that were never yours. In a house where the furniture never moved, where rugs hide the traces of repeated footsteps, you lived a script written before you were born. The chair you never sat in, the garden you never tended, the dance you only watched through a window. These are the chapters of a book that was never yours, but one you read as if it had been. And now, as time begins to tighten the seams of your soul, as the hours grow thick and slow, something within you cracks with quiet dignity. It is the recognition of absence. The life that passed may not have been a prison, but it was never truly freedom. Have you felt this too? That old sensation as if something was always hanging by a thread. And that thread in the end was you, trying to remember yourself. For years you followed rituals without spirit, woke at the same hour, pressed the same buttons, wore the same shoes. Each morning felt like a continuation of the last, as if time had folded in on itself, and inside that fold, your will had vanished. You didn't live. You performed. You fed obligations, kept promises you didn't remember making, smiled in photographs where your body was present, but your essence was not. And still, from the outside, everything looked right. Right by others' standards. Right in your family's eyes, in your teacher's pride, in the logic of society. Right enough to no longer be yours. Inside a closet carefully hung rests the blazer you wore to your first job. It still carries the scent of that day, a mix of fear, sweat, and hope. But what became of the hope? It was replaced by efficiency, targets, deadlines. You became someone who knew exactly what to do, but forgot why. The words that once lit your imagination now fill email threads. The music that moved you became background noise. Time didn't stop. It simply stopped listening to you. And still, each night as the lights go out, you feel a flicker, a quiet unease, as if something within still waits for you. As if your real life has been silently nearby, just waiting for you to turn toward it. If that unease visits you too, write in the comments, "I can still feel life calling." Sometimes a single phrase is the key to unlock the door you forgot to open. Inside everyone, there is a locked room where childhood still breathes. Not the one in family albums, but the raw, restless childhood filled with unanswered questions. In that room lie nameless toys, unfinished drawings, desires never interpreted. An entire universe you learned to silence just to fit into the world. As you grew, that room was slowly quieted, as if the voice living there had to be buried for the adult to survive. But the cost was high. You forgot where your own color came from. Somewhere along the way, you stopped speaking to what was sacred within you. The inner voice turned into static, and the static into weariness. You wore the character, strong, productive, reliable, and forgot that behind the mask, there was someone who simply longed to be seen, fully, without roles, without tasks, just to be. Time passed and the room became a cell, not because someone locked you in, but because you threw away the key yourself. You thought it was maturity, but it was fear. Fear of being vulnerable, of disappointing, of choosing the wrong path. So you chose someone else's. And now every time the world goes quiet for a moment, you hear a faint sob from deep inside. It's your soul, still there, still waiting to be remembered. What would have happened if you'd followed that old passion, that inexplicable urge that I don't know why, but I must? Maybe the answer doesn't matter anymore. Or maybe it matters now more than ever. There comes a moment, and it always comes, when the character begins to fracture. The expressions that once protected, now betray. The practiced smile tires. The rehearsed gestures lose rhythm. Something inside starts to give way. It's not an explosion, it's subtler, like an old house that begins to groan when the wind changes. You feel it in your bones, in the mornings when the body rises, but the soul stays curled beneath the sheets. In the conversations where your presence feels like a faded photograph, still visible, but no longer alive. At that moment, the masks become heavy. They once gave you a place in the world. Now they push you out of yourself. You begin to see that applause isn't enough, that titles say nothing at night when your head rests on the pillow and the ceiling quietly asks the question you've been avoiding. Who are you living for? The answer doesn't come clearly. It comes as vertigo. Because if your whole life was built for others, what remains when those others are gone? You try to return to yourself, but you're lost. And you realize the map you were given never pointed in your direction. Maybe it's time to draw a new one, with trembling hands but your own, even if late, even if from nothing. Because there is something sacred in beginning again. If these words touched something forgotten within you, write, I'm removing the masks. Sometimes naming the ache is all it takes to begin its unraveling. One day, without warning, without clear reason, you walk down an ordinary street and something shifts. Maybe it's the way light filters through the trees. Maybe it's the scent of fresh bread from a nearby bakery. Maybe it's the silence of an old woman alone on a park bench. And suddenly, without explanation, you feel it. Life breathing inside you again. Not as a blaze, but as a quiet warmth, seeping gently into the corners of a soul long neglected. You are not healed, not ready, but you are present. You stop. For the first time in ages, you simply stop and listen to the sound of your steps, the rhythm of your breath, the memory of a name you nearly forgot, your own. Not the one in documents, but the one you whispered as a child before sleep, dreaming of who you would become. The old room still exists inside, but now when you open its door, there's no guilt, no urgency. You step in slowly, touch forgotten objects, turn on the light. Dust dances in the air as if celebrating your return. And maybe that's enough. Maybe it's not about changing everything. Maybe it's simply about allowing yourself to be. In silence. In truth. In yourself. You don't have to rush. Just keep returning. Gently. With listening. With reverence. There's still time to become who you are. If something in you was stirred during this path, don't let it dissolve in the noise of the next minutes. Save this memory. Return to this video when silence grows heavy, when doubt stings again, when you forget where you came from. Leave a fragment of yourself in the comments. A phrase, a whisper, a trace of the life still pulsing quietly within. Others will find their own reflection there, and you'll see, you're not alone. Share this video with someone who's losing themselves. Subscribe to the channel to continue this ritual of listening. Each week we open another door, slowly, deeply, truthfully. The deeper you return, the fuller you emerge.